online opportunities for paid opportunities. Now, our guest is a lawyer and a personal brand strategist. She is Paula Pwul. She is the founder of Afro Creates Digital and host of She and Podcast. Paula allows women to own their voice and use the internet with purpose and build careers that align with their convictions. She joins us from Jos virtually on the program. Hello, Paula. Good morning to you and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Let's talk about this adage and age of social media where a lot of youths, particularly the women, have been accused of prioritizing selling beauty over brains. What's your foundation doing differently to reorient women in a time when content creation has reduced a lot of them to just being TikTokers?
Thank you for that question. As a matter of fact, I think that is the best way to start this conversation. We've got a lot of brilliant women who are not being pointed at their brains. We've got social media that is emphasizing beauty, and even the brainy, and most of these women are brainy. So the brainy people are thinking, okay, so if I'm not directing my efforts to beauty, then there's hardly any value for me in the society. So growing up, when I realized that this was the case, and I knew that I had more than just beauty to offer, I decided to go on a self-discovery journey. And in doing that, I started to help others also discover how much more they can offer beyond beauty.
Well, it's interesting to know that this has been a purposeful commitment towards helping re-engineer the minds of young women. Now, talking about the online space and the opportunities that abound, how do women identify their conviction and purpose in such spaces?
Great question. You see, we're all born with purpose, right? The only distinction and the reason why I'm primarily focused on women is the fact that I'm a woman and I know the very particular obstacles that hinders women from really putting their value out there, right? But as a human race, we're all born with purpose. And so it is that purpose that drives us even when we don't know it. Your life experiences, the people you come in contact with, we all have special advantages, the things that matter to you, the things that upset you in the world. These are all the ways that we find our purpose, so to say. The purpose is already there. It's really unearthing it. Figuring out which area in this world you're supposed to thrive in, which area you're supposed to provide solutions in. So the process is, I give my clients clarity, I give my audience clarity, because many times we're even living in purpose, we just haven't identified it yet.
Now, does this have to do with personal value systems or in terms of solving problems within the communities in which we dwell in, or the online space in particular?
It's a combination. It's a combination because when you're sent on a mission, right, whatever it is you're supposed to do on the earth, there are tools that come with it. And those tools are the combination of your personal beliefs, your training, your job, right? And the work that you will end up doing in the business world. So it is a combination of that. If your values do not align with the work you're doing, there's going to be a misalignment. And when there's a misalignment, there's going to be a shrinking.
Now, what role does your mindset as an individual play in terms of choosing how to embolden your brand and visibility in the digital space?
Oh, the mindset is the engine. Right? The mindset is when you wake up in the morning and you know that you are a solution provider, is different from when you wake up with the mindset of finding somebody to help you. Right? There is the way you move is different. The things you create is different. The way you show up in the rooms you enter is different. So the mindset is the place to work on, and then you find the skills that will position you as a solution.
Now, we're also in an age where the word influencer is quite disparately used amongst young people, and when you find people online, a lot of them tell you their goal is to amass a certain following, to be influential either in the digital space or even be able to carve a niche for themselves in the real world. Is there a perception you have towards this ambition to become a social media influencer, and how realistic it is, or into the few influencers who have been able to bring about positive influence in their spaces?
That's a great question. There is a very distinct difference between being an influencer and having influence. So an influencer does have influence, but that is a line of work. That is primarily the job, to endorse other people's products. When you have influence, you don't have to be an influencer. You can be a pastor with influence. You can be a business owner with influence. You can be a politician with influence. You don't have to be an influencer. That's one. And secondly, the tag influencer has been relegated to beauty. It's been relegated to beauty and lifestyle. But if you look around, we've got tech influencers, we've got political influencers, we've got business influencers. So basically, influence is being able to be trusted, that your opinion is trusted. And on the topic of following, a platform is needed if you're going to have a voice, if you're going to change something. It is a selling of your ideas. So naturally, you need people to sell the ideas to. So while I don't believe that having, amassing a large following is a business model, I do believe that it is a tool. And when you are clear on what you offer, the more people you're able to reach, the more people you're able to impact. And not necessarily in beauty or fashion.
Now, let's talk about the options that are there for African women, especially on the online space today, in terms of endorsing other people's products as an influencer and having influence in terms of their chosen career paths. What are some of the available options women can explore in terms of choosing how to project themselves on the online space?
Recording stopped.
Great question. So there are multiple ways that you can provide solutions, right? So like you said, the influencing is one. You can get other people's products and get other people to jump on board those products. But you can also create your own. You can harness the knowledge and experience that you have and provide it to somebody that's not necessarily in the same part of the world as you. You can provide services. If you're a lawyer, you are able to provide a certain level of services, maybe apart from going to courtrooms, maybe business, tech law. You can provide those services to people who don't necessarily need to see the person that's providing their solution. One thing we have to realize is that people are looking for people who can do work. Global companies and businesses are looking for capable hands. And we've got a lot of capable hands. We have human capital here in Africa. But when the conversation is going on, a lot of women don't see how that affects them. But skill is skill, competence is competence. And so if you're able to provide a service, if you're able to give a solution to somebody who is not even in Africa, then you have unlocked an income stream. Again, you can set up your own company, right? Apart from freelance services, you can set up your own company and provide, again, more services. So a lot of information and knowledge and capacity is going on over the internet now. So if you're able to discipline yourself and harness what you have to offer, you will find a market for it if you search.
Now, finding the market seems to be quite a Herculean task, especially with some of the platforms, like you talked about earlier, having restrictions to certain African countries. Particularly, Nigerians have debated upon the need for Meta to open monetization up on certain platforms, and you have other apps where location has been some sort of barrier. How do African women surmount these barriers in monetizing their expertise online?
When you're faced with an option, when you're faced with an obstacle, right, you have an option. You have an option to cry about it or figure out what you can do with what you have right now, right? So until Meta and the powers that be that are blocking the things, until they fix that, what can you do right now? It might be a little redirection of skills. It might be the package that you expected the career to go, the direction you expected your career to go might be being blocked with this. What else can I do? There's always the question of what else can I do? So we've got freelance platforms like Upwork, right, that are open to hiring freelancers regardless of your location. You can direct your efforts there. You can reach out to people individually instead of waiting for the platforms to find those people for you. It might just take a little extra research, but it can be done. And the primary thing about personal branding, again, is that you're building something that speaks for you in rooms that you're not yet in. So if the decision makers or the people that are searching for that solution find you via personal branding, via your digital footprint, I do not believe that there is any there's any obstacle, there's any platform that can stop them from getting your services.
Now, there's a widespread notion, especially in the digital space, that there's not such a thing as bad publicity, especially off the back of certain challenges that trend online. And you find young persons, young women jumping on these challenges. In your opinion, is there bad publicity? Can a negative digital footprint impede some of the opportunities available to African women?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is such a thing as bad publicity because you see, it's hard to erase something from the internet. And a lot of our young girls are looking at the instant fame, the instant gratification, the likes and maybe the follows and the accolades from that challenge. But eventually, even if you're not there yet, eventually you will want to build something meaningful, something respected. And when you want that, whatever it is that you did in the trend, in jumping on the trend, right, it's going to follow you. It's going to be part of what people are going to use to judge your capacity or your respectability or whether or not they want to align with you. Because you're building your brand, other people are building their brands too. And when it comes to collaborations, people are checking, are you going to add to my brand or are you going to take away from it? And if you're going to take away from it, then that's already a block. So it might seem like a fun trend at the moment, but it lasts much longer than that, and it's not going to disappear just because you've decided to do something different.
Now, back to purpose and storytelling. How do African women have these two tools at hand in terms of carving a digital footprint or maximizing their online presence through storytelling?
Our stories are fingerprints. There are no two people that will go through the same experience that will have the same story, because we're a collection of our backgrounds and our mindsets and our worldview. And so your story is the main thing that will set you apart. Your story, where you're from, even the things that you're not very proud of, those are the things that will make you entirely different from the next person. I have a background in law. I'm a lawyer, and some of my clients come to me and explain how it is my story of where I started in law that made them choose me over the next personal brand strategist, because I understand the pivoting, right? And so for somebody else, it might be a different story. But if I had never shared that story, if I had never shared that part of myself, the people that will align, that will resonate or see themselves in the story will not be able to find me, or at least they won't connect with me. So telling our stories is key. I have an entire chapter in my book about that, the story thing, because if you don't tell your story, nobody else is going to tell their story and make you the star of the story.
Now, this is about choices of personal brand strategies, much like you talk about experiences with your clients. How does this differ from business branding when it comes to a personality, an individual who looks to stand out? What are some of the images that you want to carefully create in putting yourself out there online?
That's a great question. So, personal branding evolved from business branding, right? Businesses were dominating the internet, they were naturally looking for business, and then people started to get tired of how robotic it was, of how there was just a lot of hard selling. And people started to realize they were more interested in the story of the people building the businesses. And so it evolved to a whole entire industry and strategy in itself, because you could be building a business, but I cannot connect to the business as much as I will connect to you as a human, because humans connect with each other, humans connect with humans. So if you give me a product, I will probably buy it because I need it. But if you tell me the journey of how you brought that product to life, I will connect with that story, and it just increases the probability that I will keep coming back. It increases connection. So business branding is all about the product and the company. Personal branding is about the stories behind whatever you're building. And another thing is that I have worked with founders who use personal branding as a retirement plan and an exit strategy. So if I'm building a business, I know that there is the possibility that this might not be what I'll do for the rest of my life. But if I build my personal brand alongside building the company, then when the era of that company passes, maybe when I've sold it, or when I've taken, I've opted out of it, or when I decide I want to launch something else, I want to do something else, go in a different direction, the traction that your personal brand has gathered in the process of building that company is what will be the platform for you to launch the next thing and the next thing.
Now, I'm talking about personal branding still in the perspective of African women. What are some I want to use the word or phrase starter pack. What's the ideal starter pack for an African woman who is looking to brand herself personally? What does she look to begin with?
Thank you very much for that. First of all, you want to figure out your message, right? What is it that you're trying to do in the world? What is it you're trying to change? You look at your experiences, your skill sets, and your values again. So we come back to that, because you have to be doing something for somebody. You have to be providing something. So you're providing a solution or product or whatever. There's got to be something you're giving, because it's a game of giving. Personal branding is not saying, look at me. It's saying, here's what I can do for you. Here's what I know that I can teach you. Here's what I have that I can show you how to get. So first of all, clarify that. Make sure you find what it is that you can offer and to who you can offer it. So get clear on your message and your offer. Get clear on who it is you're saying that to. Because many people make the mistake in personal branding of speaking to everybody and being general about it. But that's going to slow you down. Figure out the exact people that what you have can help, and zone in on those people. And then you want to pick a platform. Pick a platform that you can speak on, you can pass your message across. And there are multiple platforms available. Some people choose podcasts, some people choose YouTube, some people go the writing route. Maybe, they start their own website, their own blog, or they go on like Substack or Medium. Some people, so we've got platforms like this that you will create your own space around, and you want to have a healthy dose of grit and consistency. Once you pick a message, and of course there's a visual aspect of branding, like your colors, your fonts, and all whatnot. You want to also be clear on your values, because there will, like we talked about, there will be trends that will not align with what you're doing. And when you're clear on your values, when these trends come, you will be able to immediately tell, oh, I might be able to enjoy watching other people jump on the trend, but I cannot associate with that trend personally. So that is in entirety the starter pack: your message, your offer or your service, whatever it is that you're offering, your values, and then the platform, and a healthy dose of grit and consistency.
Now, I've heard a number of platforms you've mentioned, the likes of YouTube and whatnot. We had earlier talked about the role of following. Now, in a case where you have just but a small audience, how do you turn this expertise into income?
That's a great question. So when you start with branding, I always recommend that you lead with value, right? It's not the first day that you start personal branding that the money will start to roll in. People will have to get to trust you, and trust takes time. So they've got to trust that you will continuously show up. They've got to trust that you know what you're doing. They've got to trust that you've done this for other people. And all of that evidence, it takes time to put that evidence out. So you want to look at it like a long-term project, 3 to 6 months. Now, regardless of the fact that your timeline is 3 to 6 months, you want to have something free and something paid immediately, right? Let it be there. If it will take 2 months for somebody to trust you enough to inquire for your services, there should be a proper system in place to take that inquiry straight to a sale. So your links have to be in place, your processes have to be in place, your documents have to be in place. You want to be doing the underground work, you want the foundation to be laid. So even if you have two followers at first, you show up like you have 2,000, like you have 200,000. You show up with the confidence of the background work that you've done and what you can offer, rather than your confidence coming from how many followers you have. And it's kind of like the chicken and egg, because when you show up like that, people can tell that you're confident in what you bring to the table. And so that is what will increase the following, because they've seen value and they've seen somebody that looks like she will get them that value.
Now, there's a younger crop of young girls who are looking for the ideal mentors in terms of women who have broken grounds in their respective endeavors and fields. What's your message to them in terms of choosing what we now have normalized as role models?
Thank you very much for that. You see, somebody who is not where you want to be cannot take you where you want to be. That's the first thing. So I understand that there is a certain level of flashiness in social media right now. But as a young person, you have to be clear on where you're trying to get. In the long term, we're talking the next 10 years, right? That goes beyond, how you want to look right now. Okay, there's that. There's also the fact that when we were young, there was this idea that the reputable people were boring. But, getting here, we're finding out that the boring people are the people that hold the society together. So if I were to speak to a younger version of me, I would say find somebody who is a key player in society, rather than somebody who just looks good. There's a difference, right? And key players in the society, they do look good now. I love the way women are showing up. You can look good and be fashionable and still be immensely valuable.
This
So there's that.
this is a very relatable issue you've raised, and when we look at conversations, especially following the emergence of women like Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as the WTO Director General, a conversation was on her headgear and her looks. And I know a lot of conversation on the X social media space on Facebook were about what is the glamorous approach to younger women who look to purchase certain expensive bags and wigs as the real package to show that you have amassed some level of presence or affluence. Putting these into perspectives, do you think that it is dependent on the platform and the career path in terms of what the ideal look for a woman should be in branding? The looks of having high heels, the Stanley Cup, flashy bags, which looks like the modern woman's approach in the workspace. Let's get your thoughts on this.
I love myself a good looking woman. However, what people see should not be the measure of your success, right? I've been having a lot of conversations with women these days, and the women that know what is really going on, which is financial capacity, has nothing to do with the kind of handbag you carry. And that's really part of the message. It is make yourself valuable, make yourself financially literate, provide enough value that eventually the handbags will be part of the package. But if you're looking at people who have put in the work, who have gone the distance, who, did the groundwork, they're 20 years into their career and they're carrying the Chanels and the Hermes, and you in your 5-year career are putting that pressure on yourself, you are misguided, right? I'm not saying in your 5-year career you couldn't have a Hermes. There are people that do have that, but that cannot be the guide. That cannot be the goal. And that cannot be the measure of value. So as regards things like the headgear and, the look, the truth is people address you based on how you look. And if you look at it, you judge people based on how they look. But it's not a matter of who made what you're wearing. It's how you carry what you're wearing. So those are two separate things as well. So if I'm talking to young women now, I will say don't put yourself under the pressure of incurring expenses that using money that you could be using to build your company, you could be using to build your brand, you could be using to get into rooms that otherwise would not have been accessible to you. I mean, there are investments before returns.
Oh, well, it's interesting, and I asked that question from a background of the African woman. I know people have discussed how much of a role geolocation plays in opportunity finding, but with thanks to the internet space, the world is now a global village. Regardless, people still cite locations as a barrier. These locations are blessed with certain African attires and traditions. Do you think it's important to be somewhat of an ambassador representing the African culture even on the online social media space?
I think it's great, but I don't think it's necessary, right? If African print is not your thing as an African woman, the main thing is that you are authentic and you are okay with, your dressing and what you do with how you look. Now, there are women that are fully natural, right? And that is a part of their brand. The African hair is glorious, it's beautiful when it's styled naturally. And there are other women for whom taking care of natural hair is not necessarily a priority. And so that is not a part of their brand. How my hair looks is not as important for me as, anything else that will help me achieve my goal. So we have to remember that as much as we're dealing with African women are diverse. And we are multicultural and multi-passionate. And if I don't want to look the way the world has said an African woman should look, I should be allowed to make that choice. The entire point is that I should be able to present myself in the exact way that aligns with what's on my inside.
The other angle to this conversation is, apart from culture, do you think faith plays a role in a woman's approach to personal branding?
I know it plays a role in mine.
Why so?
I'm a product of grace. I've seen God direct and redirect me at multiple turns in my life, and I've seen how, for me to get into this exact place where I'm operating from a place of purpose, I had to release the hold I had on what I thought life was going to be, or what I expected, to be by this place. And the moment I let go and, let God, I saw an acceleration, I would say, right? I believe that we all have a purpose, and that purpose comes from God. But you have to have faith in the Creator if you're going to use the created properly. If you're going to do the best and the most with what you have, then you have to be able to trust the person that gave it to you, the person that created it. So faith plays a great role in me. And because with personal branding and business in general, you will attract the people that align with your values. Naturally, most of my clients are also people who believe in God and in purpose and in alignment and direction and grace.
Now, I like your personal experience, especially from some of the goals women set for themselves at a certain age, particularly in a social media space where some of the values are on the way you vlog your stories online. Were you at a dinner the other day? Did you have some engagements? How that story is created to serve an online presence. What do you say to women who have now put certain pressure on themselves to be able to be in certain relationships or certain associationships to be able to attract a certain level of clientele they feel share those values or hold those values in high esteem, whereas those values are not really present in their lives as at the time they wish that they were?
That's great. My journey started from the inside. And so when I work with my clients, I always start from, what do you have right now? We're aspiring, yes. We're trying to get somewhere, yes. But where are you right now? Because here's the thing, when you are presenting yourself in a way that isn't authentic, people can tell. They might not be able to say it to your face, but they can tell. They can tell that you don't really have what it is that you're claiming to have on the inside. People are intuitive like that. It is quite disrespectful to expect people to not see through, you presenting yourself in a different light. I think that whatever you have, wherever you are, is enough, while leaving room for stretching yourself. There is a level of risk taking that you need to imbibe if you're going to build anything great, but it can be done authentically.
I ask that because one of the phrases you would find particularly very popular amongst young persons in the digital space is fake it till you make it. Hence why I asked that question. I didn't want to be direct on your opinion on that fake it till you make it syndrome amongst young persons. On risk taking and trying to profile yourself. People say you should dress the way you want to be addressed, but on social media, it's being taken to an exaggerated extent that practically speaks to the fake it till you make it. What's your opinion on that approach to creating an online presence, particularly for the African woman?
I've seen the pressure that people can go under to look like they've arrived. But we're in an era now where people respect the process. So it's okay to be on your way. You don't have to have arrived. So fake it till you make it came from that worldview of people will not take me seriously if I don't look like I have the perks that come with success. However, there are wildly successful people online that have gotten successful by showing their journey, by showing their process. So it's very okay to say, listen, I'm at point 2 now. but I'm headed to point 10. And I'm going to show you the process. I'm going to show you the journey, right? But a lot of our young people can get a bit misguided and think I have to have the perks of where I'm headed right now. And if you're trying to do that, you're going to get stuck at some point, because you quite frankly don't have the capacity to operate on that level, and that's okay. For where you are, you can do what you can. You can do the best and the most with what you have. There are a lot of people that have not started putting themselves out there because they don't have the fancy cameras, and they don't have, the Canons and the Nikons and, those. But they're comparing themselves to people who started with their small phones, and who grew to get to where they're using the big stuff. But you're then comparing yourself, and you're not starting where they started from. You want to start where they've arrived, and nature honors process.
Now, I'd like to find out how you evolved. I know you've spoken about how God redirected you, but how you evolved from being a lawyer into an author. What was some of your motivations, and how did you actualize the dream of getting into being an author and a personal brand strategist?
Thank you for that. I was a young stay-at-home mom when this version of my career started. So I read law in the university. I went to the Nigerian law school. But I was married before I finished. So I was about 6 months pregnant at my call to bar, right? And so the next phase of my life was really taking care of the baby, figuring out new wife, new mom. I was in this place that I found so many young women in, where you're trying to wonder, is this the end? Is this all? Is this what I'm supposed to do for the rest of my life? While dealing with all of the things that come with being a new mom with something you've never handled before. So there was that period. And when I got through that period, the next thing, COVID hit. So I still couldn't go out there and go into the workforce and, launch as the lawyer that I wanted to be. So we were then stuck at home for about 2 to 3 years. And I was already running a small business at the time, just to not stay idle. And I realized I was enjoying the marketing side of it. And so I started to do some research, and I started to take classes and courses. I just followed my curiosity, to be honest, to the internet. So I picked up skills in that process, and I started some real self-development, because again, I was not feeling like I was operating at my full potential. So I was searching for myself, and I was searching for a way out, a way that we could still earn even while we were in lockdown. And so all of that just came together to be my start on the internet. And so I started a YouTube channel, and I started sharing the things I was learning, and it picked up, it got traction. And I realized through, again, curiosity, that these things that I know can be monetized. And so I created my first course in, I think, 2020, just testing out the idea. And it was about 2,500 at the time, which was like $5 at the time. And when I put it out, 40 people bought the course. And that was my first evidence that people are seeking knowledge, and people are seeking experience and guidance. So from then on, I just kept creating. The more I learned, the more I shared, the more I created products. Eventually, I added on coaching. The more my capacity grew, I added consulting, because self-development is a continuous process. Now, at some point in that journey, I realized that the conversation was moving more towards human-led brands than even businesses. And so that was the point of the pivot. So by that time, I was already really deep in the digital space, digital growth and marketing and branding. And I was having a great time while at it, and enjoying when I helped the women I worked with and they lit up. They no longer saw themselves as little. They no longer saw themselves as, just. And so that just fueled, that's how we got here. Eventually, I realized that if all of this knowledge were put into a book, because I'm a reader, and other people's books have helped me. If I added my book to the mix, I could provide a unique experience from an African woman to African women who I see are ready but don't exactly know how to go about it, because it can seem a bit confusing, it can seem a bit complicated. And so that's how we got to writing the book.
Well, quite interesting. I don't know if you recall, but I must give you the kudos because I met a younger version of yourself 18 years ago at an inter-schools debate organized under the then President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. It's quite interesting to see how life turns in the future, but I must appreciate you for the path you've chosen, the family values you hold dear, and now this newfound career path that you're choosing to follow. I wish you the best going into the future.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking time to also join the interview this morning. We wish you the best in future endeavors. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Thank you, you too. Bye.
That's our guest, Paula Pwul, who joined from Jos, the Plateau State's capital, lending her thoughts to the topic, African women, turning online presence into purpose and paid opportunities, especially in the social media space where the younger youth and girls particularly are more drawn to social media trends, jumping on challenges, particularly on TikTok, and then leaving quite a digital footprint that most of them in the near future might not be proud of. For instant gratification and a few likes and follows. She's also reiterated that to put out yourself as one of value, you need personal branding and faith above a followership and ideal skills that can turn that online presence into an income.